This video is going to cover requirement 3 of the electricity merit badge for Scouts BSA. Requirement 3 is to make a simple electromagnet and use it to show magnetic attraction and repulsion. This is going to be turned in by either you taking a video or we can demonstrate it via a Zoom call if you'd like. On the top right is a WikiHow article that walks through all of the steps that we'll be using in order to make an electromagnet, but the rest of this video is going to be me walking through an example of making one. To make an electromagnet, we're going to need just a few things. We're going to need something very small that's metal to pick up. I'm just using a small metal washer. We're going to need a bolt or a screw will do that has iron in it that can be attracted to a magnet. I know that this is attracted to a magnet, but if you have one just from the kitchen, it might not be quite powerful enough to pick up the bolt or screw that you've chosen. You can see that it barely picks this one up. Most bolts and screws will do just fine though. Electrical tape, if you have it, not a necessity. A battery, wire strippers, and the important part here is just that it has something that can help take off the insulation of the copper wire. If you needed to, a knife like this would also work. Copper wire is something that you can get online or at your favorite hardware store if you don't have any at home. We'll be wrapping this around the bolt. To get started, we're going to wrap wire around the iron bolt or screw. We want to make it look about like this. You can see that we left a few inches of slack at each end. We wrapped it all in the same way. And then we kept the turns very, very tight. That's important. The electrical tape here is to keep the turns from pushing down at the end of the bolt. You can also hopefully see that the ends of these slack is very shiny, and that's what we're going to use the wire strippers for. The reason it has to be like that is that you want electricity to be able to flow through it, and sometimes there's a little bit of insulation on the outside of this copper. So by stripping it, you can see that the shininess comes through, and that should be a good connection. So we'll go ahead and fast forward through the part of building this, but in general, this is what you want to make. So now that we've gotten the turns on, some electrical tape at the end, and some slack sticking out, we're going to strip the ends of the wires so that they are shiny, like this one. On these wire strippers, there are two parts that come together that I can use for helping to strip the wire. You don't want to cut the wire, but you want to pull off the shiny part so that way you get a good connection. So you do this by staying close to the wire, but not cutting it. And you can see that eventually you will start to get some shininess. So now if you have the ends nice and shiny, we're ready to try it out. So to try it out, we're going to get our battery. We're going to hold one end of each wire on each side of the battery. You may start to feel it get a little bit hot. If you need to, use a towel in between your thumb and the wire. So let's try it out. Look at that. We're picking up washers. So, if you've done that, you have successfully built an electromagnet. One of the natural things to wonder about an electromagnet is how much you can pick up. You saw that with our electromagnet, we're able to pick up a simple washer. Things that are heavier, though, it might struggle with. You can see that it's able to get this bolt, but just barely, and it certainly can't get multiple things. There's two ways that you can increase what an electromagnet can pick up. One is to add more windings. Two is to add more power. I've got more windings on this electromagnet, and you're going to hear a power supply turn on that gives more power to the electromagnet I have hooked up now. We're going to see what this guy is able to pick up. So you can see it did better with the big bolt. We're able to pick that up, no problem. Pick that up, no problem. Maybe even pick up two things here. Yeah. So you can see that it's more powerful. And that principle applies for a lot of electromagnets around with motors and other things like that. I'm sure most of you have seen one of these before. This is a motor that you can turn and it makes a light come on. One of the super parts about electricity and magnetism is that you can create a magnet from electricity like we just did, but also you can create electricity from turning magnets. If we take this thing apart, you can see that the gears are what turn this. And then if we take this apart, we can see that there are magnets inside actually, and I want you to see the coils, very similar to what we were just building. So these are magnets, the red and blue things I just took off. But inside, you can see coils of wire, copper wire. It turns out that whenever you turn magnets against coils of wire, it makes electricity out of these two terminals here.